Sonic Mania is approaching steadfast within a week of release, and amidst the general aura of hype surrounding it, there are some important factors regarding Classic Sonic that need to be considered going forward. Mania has received the single greatest amount of faith in a product I think of any Sonic game. From the marketing to the gaming community to even the divisive fanbase who, even in their negative contingents, are still conscientious of its quality, clear as day as it is. So when the game comes out, and it's hopefully met with the critical praise that its enthusiastic public profile has demanded, Sega are bound to strike while the iron is hot. If this game does well, and it will, we'll likely be seeing classic Sonic games from Christian Whitehead's team on a yearly basis indefinitely, unless of course there's been any word from a Sega official to suggest otherwise. If so, let me know. If Classic Sonic annually ends up being the case, that could make for a pretty lucrative, quality few years on Sega's part, because 1. It's cost effective, each game in the Classic trilogy took months to make at a time and 2D games are just generally cheaper to make. 2. It promises quality, it's Classic Sonic made by people who are passionate about Classic Sonic and know what makes it good. And 3. It improves Sonic's public profile. Classic Sonic has a good reputation, and more Classic Sonic will improve people's opinion of Sonic as a whole, which, along with a streak of glowing reviews, will improve his sales figures. In the end, Sonic, theoretically, is re-legitimized as a gaming icon, and all those years of profit generated from Classic Sonic can go into funding Sega's other forgotten franchises, and/or a 3D Sonic game with some actual meat to it that, maybe in a perfect world, is one consistent idea that runs throughout the entire game shared between multiple characters, which hopefully at that point will be a design concept Sonic Team finally picks up on, given all the glowing reviews of Whitehead's very own Sonic Mania 3 and Knuckles. However, if this is to be the case, Sega needs people to keep coming back, and after a while, the promise of solid gameplay might not be enough, as without any significant additions to each game one after the other, stagnation starts to set in, and in comes the issue of diminishing returns, an issue that has played out quite badly when it comes to Sonic's iconography in the past 7 years. Whitehead's recruitment among Sega's ranks presents a golden opportunity for them to significantly improve their financial standing, but if there's no desire for the slightest bit of innovation on Whitehead's part, this opportunity might very well pass them by. So it's at this point we have to ask the question: let's get the first and most obvious thing out of the way. Classic 2D Sonic games going forward should all have completely original stages. If you're watching this video, you're no doubt well aware that ever since 2010, many Sonic games, both 2D and 3D, have struggled significantly with originality. Starting with Sonic 4, games started to develop this awful habit of reusing level themes and concepts from older games in what has now become a frustrating, misplaced attempt at milking the nostalgia teat of Sonic fans, completely oblivious to the fact that that teat is now beyond dry. Literally, the Green Hill iconography is so dry at this point that the water has been replaced with sand. It's absolutely maddening in Mania to see these wonderful sprinklings of originality with levels such as Studiopolis, Mirage Saloon, and whatever other original levels they've yet to show off, only for them to be forced into the corner by yet another surplus of reimagined levels from past games. One of the best things about Sonic games has always been how creative, fantastical, and surreal the level themes and environments are, a far cry from the generic desert level, water level, lava level standards set by the Mario franchise. It's one of the things that makes going into a new Sonic game exciting, and when you constantly force the most iconic ones to have presence in every new one that comes out, you're robbing these new ones of their chance to establish a style or identity, or even become iconic in their own right. How much less iconic would Sonic Adventure 2 be if they replaced City Escape with Green Hill Zone? The classic games didn't and couldn't rely on this crutch of nostalgia. They had to be good games by themselves, so why should the new games be any different? That's not to say you can't have callbacks at all, just if you do, make them subtle and artful, and for God's sake, don't brandish them all over your marketing. The second thing, another relatively obvious one, is to add more characters. A tradition from Sonic Advance 1 to 3, and if you really want to get technical, you could include Sonic Advance 1 and 2, was that with every new game that came out, they would include a new character. In Sonic 2, they added Tails. In Sonic 3, they added Knuckles. In Advance 1, they added Amy. In Advance 2, they added Cream. You get the idea. So, with every successor to Mania, a new character should be added to the roster, assuming Mania doesn't do that anyway via DLC. Every new character should follow the convention of playing like Sonic with some small but valuable differences that make them feel like a different character. This is an opportunity to absolve a lot of the side characters in the Sonic series of their guilt by association with the reckless experimentation that has permeated the 3D games, which had them constantly do things that clash with the core elements of the franchise. Even nowadays, many people are convinced that the biggest problem with Sonic games are all the side characters, despite the fact that they were never the problem to begin with. It's not about Sonic being the only one you play as, it's about Sonic characters doing Sonic things. Games like Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Lost World proved that by having Sonic be the only one you play as, but still containing gameplay elements that aren't what you play a Sonic game for. Just look at the amount of ROM hacks that basically involve inserting different characters into Sonic 1. This is something people want. I'm not going to act like I would care to see every one of them return, but it's a shame to see such a huge cast of characters, all very easy to get attached to, continually go unnoticed. For instance, as a quick tangent, I must say I'm actually kind of disappointed that Mania doesn't represent Amy Rose as a core member of Team Sonic, especially considering that this game is built as a quasi-sequel to 3 and K and takes a lot of clear inspiration from CD in terms of art design and music. It would have been the perfect time to put her in. I mean, it couldn't take that much effort. Save for sprite animations, pretty much all of the work has already been done, which actually you could apply to most characters in the series. As for the third and final thing, I think each successor to Mania, or at least every other one, should have their own game-specific mechanics. Now, when I say that, what probably jumps to your mind immediately is something like the werehog or the mech shooting, an element which is a deliberately separate entity from the gameplay that makes up the core appeal of the game. But that's not at all what I mean. I'm more referring to mechanics like the time travel in Sonic CD and the partner system in Sonic Advance 3. Elements that work as an extension of the core mechanics, inspiring different ways to design stages, characters, and power-ups, resulting in a game that displays the versatility of the gameplay style it accommodates. One of the great things about the time travel gimmick in Sonic CD was that it didn't get in the way of speed and platforming. In fact, it was the exact opposite. It was speed and platforming that allowed you to time travel. And I think that that's the standard that really any Sonic game with gameplay-specific mechanics should aim for. Having game-specific mechanics can also give a game a strong thematic element that not only focuses its design, but gives it a clear identity. Sonic CD's rank among the other classic games is variable for many people, but thematically it's easily the strongest game of the classic era. Show the classic trilogy of Sonic games to a complete layman and they wouldn't be able to tell you anything about each one individually. While they all definitely have their own design subtleties, all anyone who's never played them before can tell you at face value is you go fast and that's it. But show them a game like Sonic CD and they'll be like, oh, that's the one where you travel through time. Or again, going back to the Advance games. The first two, to any normal person, look the same, you just go fast. But show them Advance 3 and they'll be like, oh, that's the game where you play in a team. This kind of thing can do wonders for a game's design and its identity when put in the right hands. Now, of course, there's no guarantee that giving each game its own specific mechanic will make them better. Advance 3 by many is considered the worst of the trilogy, and CD tends to be a polarizing game for many. If Mania's successors attempted this, they very well may be considered an acquired taste at best, and the Sonic series is already enough of an acquired taste to begin with. But I think a game series can afford experimenting with different mechanics as long as the fundamentals are clear and consistent from game to game. And classic Sonic's fundamentals, especially in the hands of Whitehead, are so well understood at this point that I think widening the scope, even just a little bit, for what these games can be expected to do beyond just being a simple affair of running and jumping to the right is a perfectly viable next step to take. Again, just look at the modern ROM hack community. Theoretically, half of the work has already been done. All of this being said, however, we are dealing with classic Sonic here, so an important rule of thumb for anything they try would be to keep it simple. Overall though, I don't feel like I have anything to worry about. If Whitehead and his team do end up making official classic Sonic games post-Mania, I have my doubts that they would be complacent just doing the standard expected of them. All these guys are longtime fans who are just as passionate as the rest of us, and there's got to be a harvest of ideas that they're just itching to try out on a main series game. Maybe they'll dip into the modern ROM hacking community and pull out ideas from there, who knows what they'll do. If you ask me, Sonic's in a pretty good place. Sega has finally acknowledged the ingenuity of their fanbase, and even Sonic Team, albeit painfully slowly, seems to be tuning their ears to a frequency where they can actually understand what people are asking of them. I think if Sonic continues along this track, then he's got no place to go but up.